versus Quest Warrior, even Paladin banned out for Garubor, and Secret Hunter and even Lock. What I've seen that deck fail so many times. It's obviously not as powerful as it used to be, but Surrender, being himself, going to be doing pretty well. So let's get into game number 1. Garubor versus Surrender. It's going to be the Hunter versus the Druid.
Yeah, Malagos Druid. We were just having quite a few conversations about this backstage. Is it good? Is it not good? Some people were saying, oh yeah, look at Akumaker. He went pretty badly with it. Although Surrender is 2-0 right now, and Enrico as well is 2-0 with it. So we can't really say with such a small sample size, but I feel like not a lot of it has been seen these days.
Right.
Post-nerf, but if Surrender believes in it, it's got to have some potential.
Yeah, and it'll be an interesting matchup here. General, is it going to be strong enough to just repel Hunter? Because Hunter's in probably the strongest spot it's been in for a very long time.
I feel like it has the potential when the start is something like this, where the Hunter has missed its turn 1, has potentially a weak turn 2 of just playing a secret, although I guess Garubor would rather coin out Animal Companion because he can still play Master's Call next turn, and then Surrender can get essentially the normal wild growth, which is like a wild growth before your opponent has done anything. Pre-nerf wild growth right there. Yep. And he still has branching paths to be a draw engine, and as he gains armor, he gets a really strong removal with this, and well, you can curve into UI eventually. This just does look like what Druid usually used to do.
It really does, yeah. If you just closed your eyes a little bit, maybe just didn't quite look at the number at the top of wild growth there. You might get some terrified memories of the old days, but Garubor taking it a little bit slowly, just having the secret, the freezing trap live on turn 2, going into the Animal Companion, and this curves a little bit more naturally throughout the rest of the hand that Garubor has. And the thing with Hunters right now is because of Master's Call, they can take their gameplay a little bit slower because they won't just run out of gas by turn 6 or 7 as it used to be. They can keep going, and with cards like the Master's Calls I mentioned and Dire Frenzy, the power never really fades away, right? You keep putting out some big pressure minions, and Druid might just struggle a little bit.
It's true, and Surrender now is thinking about whether he wants to use branching paths for 1 draw and possibly 1 tick of armor, because he definitely wants armor to pick up the Spellstone buff to remove Misha. Instead, he goes for Ferocious Hell, and I think this is because he probably wants to use branching paths for more draw going into the following turns. He has nothing to do. He'd double Moonfire. He'd ideally like to draw into something like Nourish to just get into the ultimate infestation faster, but this Tundra Rhino is quite a bit... Never mind.
Yeah, I was just about to join you and say the Tundra Rhino, especially after seeing that turn of the buff and the Spellstone, is going to be really powerful, because Dire Frenzy on Tundra Rhino, for example, is one of the most powerful beasts in the deck you can do it on. But now with this swipe draw perfectly timed, they're fortunate for Surrender that you can clear this off. And suddenly, again, both players don't really have the best hands or most immediately impactful hands, but this is where I think we might see Master's Call just to get something going.
Yeah, it's time, I think, for him to pull the trigger and get something more done. And we don't know a whole lot about Garubor, just to emphasize the contrast between these two players, where Garubor came in through the Challenger Cup, I do believe, whereas Surrender has been on the world stage. He has been very familiar to many players and has a lot of fans, so it could be kind of an underdog story going into this, although we can't underestimate Garubor. He's already gone 2-0 in a very stacked field.
Yeah, and just a little bit more background. This is, of course, Garubor's first playoffs appearance, and most importantly as well, almost all of his points have come from ladder. He used to qualify, so he hasn't been jamming these tour stops. He's not been traveling around. He's just been at home getting it done on the ladder, and this is his first and maybe even last chance, as this is the last playoffs of this season to get the job done.
Right, and if we've learned anything from the previous playoffs, it's not to underestimate these Challenger Cup players, because a lot of them have been putting out good performances. So Surrender with kind of an awkward draw here. This is still the old problem of Malagos Druid, which is like, I kind of want to draw with branching paths so I can get more ramp, but if you draw and whiff on 2 heavy things or unplayable things, then your UI becomes even more awkward when you get it. But that's a Nourish.
It is definitely an unplayable Nourish, and Surrender, as soon as he saw the Nourish, was just stopped and was like, right, as you were talking about, what's worth more right now? Because Surrender can just Nourish next turn into the UI, which will get him there, but then he has also another weak turn the turn after, so even if he gains armor, is he just going to be beaten up this turn? I'm a little bit surprised that Garubor went for the Garubor, sorry, went for the Dire Frenzy on the mole there, but I guess with Master's Call as a follow-up, you're reasonably likely to draw another 1-drop.
It's true. He was reaching for the Master's Call first, but then I understand the line of play, and it's really, really important to not give the Druid any time. Because the second that you don't put anything on the board, the Druid is free to take a turn of ramp, and then they're suddenly doing all these extremely powerful things, and you didn't punish them while you had the time. So I like the line from Garubor, and Surrender taking the armor here, completely reasonable. He will float 1 mana on the ramp with the Nourish, but I think it's totally fine because he still has this Arcane Tyrant.
Let's see what Master's Call gives Garubor. I didn't even catch if that was a buffed one or not.
Me neither.
The Crackling Razor.
Ooh, those are awful though.
I guess Untargetable's not too bad because realistically, how does Surrender ever kill it for the rest of the game?
He doesn't, most likely. Or like Malygos swipe some. Wait, even the swipe to face with Malygos just kills 5 to the minion. So,
yeah, I think I like Membrane here.
Sorry, that would have killed it. Deal 6. I'm already forgetting how Malygos Druid works. It's been that long. But yeah, I think the Membrane makes a lot of sense. As for Poisonous, is there a Lich King in the list? There is not. So you're not really looking to be able to push through a wall on turn 8 for Surrender. So I think that the Untargetable just...
What do we know? I will say, like, for me, the Poisonous is planning for like one very specific thing to happen, whereas I feel Untargetable means that it's safe versus Spellstone swipes and so on, so on. So I don't know, we'll see how it works out, but that is a pretty threatening board from Garubor, and as I said earlier, with the Nourish, Surrender's turn this turn was, although good getting to UI, it's still 1 weak turn, and there's a lot of damage on the board for Garubor here.
Yeah, I'm thinking, if not one big threat for maybe Garubor was thinking maybe I have at least 1 minion that can one-shot a Spreading Plague, even though Plague on this board doesn't seem very strong at all. So I think I still would have leaned towards the Untargetable there. In any case, Surrender is in a pretty awkward spot because the 4/6s don't line up very well with the UI. Of course, Surrender has the Moonfires to shore up that last bit of damage, but he already used 1 swipe. He's gonna use a Moonfire this turn, it looks like. And so his damage output with Malygos is limited later on.
Yeah, it is going to be slightly limited. He does have the Alexstrasza already, though, so he knows that he can just put Garubor down to 15 as and when. But yeah, it's tough, right? Because in this matchup specifically, I don't feel like, as the Druid, you can just use these Moonfires, these Spellstones, and maybe even the swipes very freely, and be like, oh, it's okay. If I clear their board, they're only drawing 1 card a turn, so they just will never actually kill me, as opposed to me having to kill them. And it won't really work, because on top of all this, we can see that the Zul'jin's already in hand. There's obviously Rexxar, because if you're building a Hunter without Rexxar, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So Garubor can go really heavy into the late game right now and still provide threat after threat, whereas Surrender kind of just has to hope this UI gets something done.
And I get what you mean, especially because you feel less comfortable putting down Alexstrasza and then hoping that your remaining burst gets there, because once Rexxar comes down, there's suddenly the threat of Lifesteal Beasts being built, and then suddenly they're just never in range. Although Surrender is in a position where he can't afford to worry about things like that so far in the future when he's so far behind on board. The only thing he has going for him, aside from a good UI next turn, is that he has a pretty high health total, so he will have time to work, and Garubor also doesn't have his Rexxar just yet.
What's kind of funny as well is, because Zul'jin's already there, even playing Zul'jin into maybe Rexxar soon is a plus 10 health gain for the Hunter.
Gosh, yeah.
So you actually, gain so much armor, and you normally play Zul'jin in most builds of Hunter to then just play Rexxar on top of it, so you're not even really losing out.
Let's see.
I do wonder if Surrender may just have to consider actually going Alexstrasza this turn to try and set up for UI. I don't know, it's a tough one. Because if you UI now, then Alexstrasza just gets worse and worse and worse.
Right. Surrender there with a pretty choice ordering on the trade, because he had not tested for Freezing Trap yet. He knows that if he plays UI this turn, then the Arcane Tyrant becomes free anyway, despite it being frozen back. Although now that the Venom Strike trap was procced, now Surrender has to think about which UI target he wants to use it on. I really don't think this is the proper board for an Alexstrasza.
Yeah. This is just getting worse. Surrender just going for the the most threatening minion in terms of damage that he can kill. He couldn't kill off the mole with poison, so instead he's just going for the 4/4.
There's also the consideration if he drew his Innervate, he could have innervated out the Spellstone to then deal with the 2/3, but I mean, in the real world, there's still another poisonous minion to deal with, so it doesn't seem like even the best outcome would have been that great for Surrender here.
What's going to be funny to me is that it's going to be one of the few times in history that Surrender may double naturalize and actually cause a hunter to overdraw. Because it's so cheap, and if once Surrender's removed this set of minions, at least it removes the incoming lethal potential, especially with this hyena on the board. So it's just going to be funny because we just might see a hunter overdraw, which just almost never happens outside of Hawazi.
Yeah, I mean, usually you feel awful about having to naturalize because, oh, they're just going to draw into their bear sharks or something. But yeah, nowadays, Hunter just has a fuller hand than usual. And Surrender has so many targets he wants to deal with. At least the Spellstone can be used on the hyena as long as it's done first.
This actually isn't so bad for Surrender now. I actually just forgot Malfurion was a card because we've just not seen it in Druid for a while now.
Yeah.
But with Malfurion, with the Innervate, with double Naturalize, Wrath, and the Spellstone, you can actually just get a lot done here in terms of, okay, I'll remove most of this board and put up 2 taunts or poison if you feel like it, gain the armor, and have a buffed hero power as well. So
yeah, the poison is particularly interesting here. Wow. Alex plus Spellstone this turn? Oh, going for Naturalize instead.
Yeah, I think even both these Naturalizes might have to be played.
Yeah.
Because you want Garubor, or Surrender wants Garubor, should I say, to actually have to think about dealing with this Alexstrasza.
Technically, he only needs 1 more damage outside of it, but I think Surrender expects this to still be cleared, in which case he's happy because his opponent just spent... Oh my goodness! That is a huge overdraw. Now this 15 damage outside of the armor gain from Zul'jin is permanent. I mean, 15 health rather, and that means that Surrender with a Malagos draw, he still has 1 swipe left. The Moonfire will deal 6. So if he could piece together the Florist, it could just be still an OTK.
It really could. This is kind of nutty. The one time Hunter overdraws, it's into Rexar. That just cracks me up. Still a lot of pressure though, and a lot of damage. And with the way Hunter's built right now is, there's still so much that Garubor can do. We can see another Dire Frenzy that could potentially land on one of these minions next turn. Not only to shuffle the bigger minions in, but people often forget it's +3 attack.
Yeah.
It's just more damage.
I think Surrender consciously chose that to be a double Naturalized turn, even though he could have used Spellstone to specifically get an overdraw and was rewarded for that. Now he still has Malfurion into Spellstone to clear off the Scavenging Hyena. He has Wrath to get rid of the 3/3. And this is still a consideration for Poisonous on this turn, because especially since you saw Rexar overdrawn, like, how is the Hunter going to deal with 2 Poisonous outside of, like, Flanking Strike and something?
Spreading Plague always looks nice against Hunter, but the board is a little bit too big.
Yeah, it could get to the point where the Hyena just is not killable by Spellstone anymore, in which case Surrender is very, very afraid because he has used both Naturalize, so I'm definitely looking at Malfurion here. Surrender also has to consider how much time he has to get to the Malagos being able to do an OTK, because if the Twig and the Dream Petal are near the bottom, even if he draws Malagos quickly, it might not be able to get everything done in a single turn.
Right. I mean, there's a very real chance that with Malfurion, if you Malfurion and go into the Spellstone on the Hyena, you could consider start pushing damage to face with that hero power, because, as you mentioned, with Rexar gone, and some of the secrets already been played, Hunter's got very little game at stopping you dealing damage.
Surrender is going with the exact play we mentioned. Garubor, with the Zul'jin, at least will be able to... I'm not sure if it's this turn that you play it. Well, with the Spellstone, it's nice to maybe hold on to it for a bit longer, because you can then refill a board after these spiders have traded off.
Yeah, I think maybe with that Spellstone draw, the secrets in Spellstone just got better. But if there was no Spellstone and it was just whatever, then I'd lean towards Zul'jin because you're still dealing 2 damage a turn with the hero power, but also these secrets could potentially do nothing because in some worlds, Surrender doesn't have to proc them until he can win. So you know, you're just playing secrets and then nothing happens. Garubor going for the Zul'jin though. Puts himself up to 20, and these Dire Frenzies get played again, and this is so sick.
Although that doesn't stack.
One drop.
That doesn't stack, does it?
No, but the damage is scary.
Surrender looks very stressed out by this. Luckily for him, the flanking doesn't land onto those spiders, but he still has to contend with a refill of secrets. Even just the one freezing is quite awkward for Surrender here, the other being Venom Strike Trap.
Master's Call coming from Zul'jin, just getting the use again because that's just another Dire Mole on the board. Imagine telling this story. Yeah, first game on stream of playoffs. What did you lose to game 1? Dire Moles. You're like, how? Oh, did they just have like, turn 1, turn 2 Dire Mole? No, it was turn 10 Dire Mole. I lost because of it. It's insane.
Fair enough. And it looks like we're going to see a play that was very much well explained in the clips between some of the matches, which is spreading Plague into branching paths.
Yeah, I wonder if that...
How else does he survive? And he has to go for attack, right? Otherwise, the problem just compounds.
Yeah, probably has to.
Oh, going for Wrath instead. Wrath and Moonfire onto this, then he can remove the 7-9 and he can armor up. Although it feels so bad to leave the Poisonous up. He could just face tank it, but then he's dead to Kill Command and Hero Power.
But he's already seen 1 though, right? Have we seen 1 Kill Command, I think?
I think we have, yeah.
They do it. Brave Surrender. I love casting Surrender mainly because of his camera as well, because Surrender just is so emotive. He feels all of the emotions, but no matter what, still smiles. He's just a happy guy.
I don't think I'd be happy in this situation, Raven.
Look, it's still Druid, okay? Things can happen.
Fair enough. So Garubor with the Animal Companion draw. Very convenient to land Leok because that would make the trades very easily. Win Fury on this would be insane. I don't want to keep calling out the best outcomes for Surrender's sake, but...
So yeah, if you just don't like Surrender, just say so.
Okay, these are some of the... No, well, not that great. I guess Divine Shield...
Justice. It's going to be funny. I kind of just want Garubor to just put Dire Frenzy on a mole again. Just so we know the deck is just almost full of crazy big Dire Moles. It'd be so funny.
I mean, there's a reason why people lauded it even as just a 1-mana 1/3.
Yep. Finally living up to the true potential.
Final form of Dire Mole is just a 7/9.
I wonder if it's best to just preload it onto the 4/2.
Yeah, I mean, Leok is always going to be a powerful draw here. Also, it just synergizes with the other Dire Moles to get through the plagues, I guess.
That is true.
Yeah.
I just wanted I'm always so tempted to go Razormar on that. Dream Pal, not really going to get much done here. I think Surrender's going to have to go dig in.
It was even tempting from Garubor's perspective, I think, to maybe just ping the face because Surrender is so low. But, I mean, he recognizes that Surrender has used nearly all of his removal, but still has a bit of armor gain left. So it's more valuable for him to load onto the board. And I don't know what Surrender can draw outside of second spreading Plague to give him more time here. Both Spellstone and both Naturalize gone by my count.
Yeah, Moonfires are gone too as well. So even like Malygos Moonfire 2 minions, right? To just kill them off is not going to happen. And I think this is one of the problems that Surrender's had in this game overall. And it's a problem that, guess what, Mali Druid does have is, well, if Mali's at the bottom of your deck, you can just get ran over because there were times when Surrender could have just maybe dropped Malygos and double Moonfired if he had access to Mali. And then things could have got a little bit funky because then you have to trigger this Fluke. That potentially makes it cheaper. But it's not meant to be.
Yeah, I do want to say that this game is probably in the books already, so I'm looking at the rest of Surrender's lineup, and it seems like this Hunter was going to get a win at some point, I think, if not against this Malygos Druid against the Quest Rogue.
It's the overall big question mark I have, not only in this matchup but in this tournament, is I feel like everyone's lent one way or the other. In general, it's either all aggro or all sort of combo / control. And I feel like so much of the tournament is like whose lineup do you run into, and the big trick is when you can get wins against unfavored lineups versus you. The second you do that, then you're just likely to just get edge across just that little bit more to be able to make it into the top cut, and that's another
just like
buff
LHS in a larger scale.
Yes, Swiss LHS.
A Swiss of Conquest is just a large LHS.
My God, that Leok.
Yeah, that is exactly the right expression. And by my count, Garubor is currently one off. One off, right? Surrender is at 15, including the hero power. So, I mean, Garubor can just do whatever he likes at this position. Surrender doesn't have the time to do any powerful things with Malygos. He didn't get the twig early enough. He couldn't land Dream Petal onto Malygos.
Yeah, this definitely looks like, Surrender's Druid is just the old timer coming back thinking they can make it, and it's the past their time now. You need to, live up to the namesake there and surrender that game over to Garubor, as that is even just one game from the differences of these playing to its finishing point very quick.
And now we have a matchup which has been in the game for ages. Evenlock versus Malygos Druid. And even before the nerfs, people were on the fence about who's actually favored here. I lean towards the Malygos Druid just because they had that burst potential, whereas Evenlock tends to put itself down low in order to get hooked Reavers. But that largely depended on the presence of Naturalize to be able to deal with the early Giants. Nowadays, though, after the nerfs, Druid is just worse all around, so I feel like the Evenlock should be favored.
Yeah, I would think so, because also with the nerfs to Wild Growth and Nourish a while ago, Druid does more or less the same thing, just slower. And often you beat Warlock because by the time they were tapping a lot into those late turns, you were already getting ready to just Malygos and kill them. And that's not quite the case as much anymore. And Garubor already Twilight Drake and a Mountain Giant on the coin as well means that he can get this pressure down pretty early. And I don't know about you, Gia, but I don't see a Naturalize.
Yeah, and Surrender's opening hand is quite bad. And because of that, as early as now, he's like, okay, I don't think I can go for the Smart plan. He held back on the hero power to respect an eventual hooked Reaver, which is something you did not used to do as Malygos Druid. At least I didn't do it.
Yeah, sometimes you can actually just swipe face with a hero power for Malfurion and you've killed them randomly. But I was going to say, there's always the turn 3 draw now, because look, Wild Growth couldn't have been played anyway on turn 2, so that hero power is not so bad.
Yeah.
But Ferocious Howl at least helping cycle and get to Malfurion, which again, the 3 damage hero power is insane. We don't see it as much right now, but that stacks up very quickly.
Yeah. And Garubor going for the earlier Twilight Drake than Mountain Giant in order to respect exactly Naturalize. And Surrender is drawing good stuff off the right side. And good for him, because finally the hand looks like it's starting to piece itself into a curve, although Garubor will not be slowing down. Double Giant, yeah, we can respect one Naturalize.
Look at but I love it. He's one of the only people who can amuse me whilst they're losing. That is not a good thing to happen to Surrender, but he's just laughing and smiling about it anyway.
By his expressions, I was trying to judge whether he had drawn Naturalize because I saw a bit of a smile there, but he does sometimes smile even when bad things are happening to him. So unfortunate for him there. This could just be a stomp.
This is the problem, right? So not only is Twilight Drake going to start chipping away, not only is the Giant going to start punching him in the face pretty hard, there's just another one. These draws would have to be insane. There you go, the side tilt now. That's too much for Surrender. He's not laughing anymore.
Yeah.
The second Giant is when it goes too far. Already down to 21 health. There is a Spreading Plague, but Evenlock's one of the few decks that aggressive style decks that doesn't really care about Plague, because, okay, bang, 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 they're all dead. Let's move on.
It really is just buy a turn for Surrender here. And luckily for him, most of the time, Evenlocks are just dropping Mossy Horror now. So this will prevent quite a bit of damage. But Surrender is still 2 turns away from being able to get the Twig online. And he needs Twig.
Yeah, that's just
lethal. Wait. Yeah, wait. There's a...
That was it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, purely because of the Tyrant being on the board, the Hellfire set up the Defile to go 1, 2, 3, and that was it. And
so sad.
you guys might have blinked and missed that one, but 2 sorry, 0-2 down.
Yeah.
Can he fight back? And so I'm just saying, look, I got to win with this druid. Maybe third time's a charm.
This
and
is
it's
the
gonna
hand
be
to do
against,
it.
yeah, it's going to be against Odd Quest Warrior
This is
with a Soul Thief.
right. This is the hand to do it, and the matchup, I guess, where he would have had not the easiest time, but an easier time. It's kind of weird though, because when you go up against the normal Odd Warrior as a Malagos Druid, you feel bad because sometimes you just can't get there against their armor total. Against this warrior though, if they want to get their powerful hero power online, then they need to give up the armor gain. So it's a little bit awkward. But at the same time, that 8 damage every turn is very difficult for a Malagos Druid to deal with.
Right, and this is going to be the question mark, and some of the weird interactions of bringing an archetype that isn't played too much, isn't super common, is, so Garubor could just press his armor hero power every single turn and say, you won't get enough damage to kill me. He could maybe have that confidence, but maybe a lack of being able to practice against much Malagos Druid, because I'm not being funny, I wouldn't have particularly practiced against Malagos Druid for this tournament. But I will say, we saw the Blackworld Pixie in the opening hand that was tossed.
Yeah.
He runs 2. So if I was Surrender, if the Ragnaros hero power comes online, I would be terrified because you can just take 1,000,000 damage whilst you blinked and he could die again.
It's true. And one thing that was interesting is that Garubor kept the Azalina, which is not something I would think to do. I'm not really sure what he is preparing for with that kind of keep, but it sort of tells me that he's not really looking to get the quest online as soon as possible. I think he would rather armor up, and maybe once he sees that Surrender's about to go for some crazy Malagos turn, maybe that's when he lets the Azalina rip so he can do something with those cards himself.
Yeah, Dream Petal Florist,
Right.
as soon as that card comes down, you don't just throw that down and hope, right?
Yeah.
That goes down to buff something important in hand, Malagos mainly, that will then proc it into a big combo, but Garubor just gonna spam the armor up. And also, a small note as well is, not only can he gain a combo, but as Odd Quest Warrior, you want to play cards, right? You would like to play a taunt every single turn, so therefore your hand size can actually get quite low sometimes. So even Azalina as a refill wouldn't be the end of the world.
It's true. And it is very telling of what Garubor is trying to do, that he just hero powered on turn 4 rather than going for a minion.
Right.
And seeing that, I feel like he just is gonna hit the button again.
Yeah, this is the true test. I mean, Tarkreep is definitely not bad, but what is Surrender gonna play this turn? Maybe he wants to front load just in case an Alex is there? Maybe? And we can see that one is, so the Tarkreep are not a bad call because now he can just armor up again. The only slightly weird thing is, well, now if he armors up, he also can't play one of his 5 drops.
Ooh, shield slap though. Oh my goodness.
This is just not Surrender's game or match.
Doesn't seem like it.
Look at
His face. Okay, he could still draw UI, Raven. This is not over.
Okay.
He
I'll
has
just
3
say okay
draws
to that.
for UI on the following turn.
And then another
Ferocious.
5 turns of relentless damage to try and kill through the armor. Oh, I don't even know anymore. So branching pass for the double draw, just to try and get something going. There's Floop.
Yeah. Historically, for the Druid, this is a matchup where you needed to get some form of minion damage to compensate for all of the armor that the warrior has, because a lot of the time, even with your max Malagos combo, you can't get enough damage to get through everything. But getting the minion damage is really, really tough when your opponent just plays taunts all the time. So
Right.
that really, really sucks. But for Surrender, I think that in order to play the quest version of the warrior list, you cut the weapon removal. So for Surrender, he could possibly get the full Twig plus Mally plus Dream Petal plus Floop, which is a lot of damage.
It really
We
is.
cannot count Surrender out yet.
This is the scary thing, and it's, it's conversations we've had tons about Warrior, especially Warrior in playoffs. Never feels like it does that well overall. And we've seen a dip in just pure Odd Warrior being brought, like Odd Control. But for me, the bonus of Odd Quest Warrior is you can choose to play defensive, but also you can just chain minions and just punch your opponent in the face if they don't really do anything about it. And Spreading Plague is about as defensive as he gets, but when you're playing defensive against a deck that can either gain so much armor you can't kill them, or can switch on potentially 16 plus damage a turn with that hero power and the pixies, then there's something going wrong somewhere.
And for Surrender to even get that dream game plan I talked about going, it's just not going to happen if your UIs are too far down, because Druid relies so heavily on that for their card draw engine, especially when you use Nourish for ramp, as Surrender did. And that made sense with his hand at the time, but the draws following that just are not keeping up.
Now Surrender just working out whether he wants to play, say, Flabidus Flute, which is, as you can see, the Tyrant now, just for an extra body. But you do always have to consider Brawl, because if Garubor's ever that bothered about the board, because let's be honest, Surrender can only make, what, 2 wide boards because of the spreading plagues, and that's pretty much it for minion pressure, then Garubor has 2 brawls. So, you know, whenever he feels too threatened, he can just press the brawl, and then it's gone. He's only 10 cards into the deck, though, so there's still 2/3 of his deck left, so potentially likely doesn't have it, and that hit just... Maybe I kill this Grizzly at some point.
I mean,
I'll start now.
I was thinking Surrender maybe was potentially considering Spellstone on the Tar Creeper and then hit again, but the Spellstone I think is probably close to full upgrading anyway. I'm not quite sure what the attack on particularly the Grizzly accomplishes, but he just didn't have much better of things to do, and that draws. You can see it on his face.
Yeah,
what does he do here? You'd never want to swipe. Because...
For those of you who may not know, maybe not be too familiar, the Florist hitting Flute doesn't really work. Because when you play another minion, the Flute resets to 4 mana again, because it's like fresh, so to speak. But I think the hit on the Grizzly was setting up this kind of turn for a kill, because the Tar Creeper is the least threatening minion on the board, because on Garubor's turn it's obviously not really hitting very hard. But this is Surrender making the best of it, but he pretty much needs to draw a UI next turn to really gain the power, because outside of UI, there's no single card that gets him back in the game. He needs UI to then draw more to create everything to go together to even have a chance.
Yeah, at the very least, a Nourish for more draw, but every turn that the UI isn't there, Garubor just gets another free 4 health. Surrender feels more pressure to use Swipe to deal with this board state, and the Swipe is -9 damage in the long run because of Mal. Could be even -14 because of Fluke.
And this is what I was saying earlier, like, if you look now, the quest is 6 out of 7, and whenever Garubor decides, he can go, oh, well, there's an extra, 12 damage because of the swings of the weapon too, and, already he's ahead on board. Surrender doesn't really have an answer to these minions. He's going to get hit for what? Say even 5 if the Amali Warbear gets killed off. He hits for 5, puts his opponent down to 24, and then there could just be another 12 this turn out of nowhere.
It's rough. I think from Surrender's position, he just has to go with the Twig here, possibly hit a 2/3 and maybe trade away the 4/1 into what? I'm not sure, because Tar Creeper looks like the obvious one, but it's actually presenting less damage on Surrender's turns. On Garubor's turns. And Surrender is going to pull the trigger on Innervate Naturalize now, which makes a lot of sense because he's locked into UI for the next turn, does not want to overdraw anything. It's crucial that he gets to squeeze out every last bit of damage.
And this is probably the tipping point of this game now, because Garubor can proc the quest, turn up the heat if he wants,
Pixie.
or he can keep going for armor. And if I was Garubor personally, I would just go quest and be like, right, now you have to not only draw the cards to try and get through all this health, you also have to not die.
Yeah.
And doing 2 things like that at the same time in any game of Hearthstone is pretty hard. He's taking a minute to decide. He looks almost pained, Garubor.
Yeah.
But this is high pressure, right? It's 2-0, first playoffs, 2-0. If he beats Surrender in this game, he goes 3-0, which is a fantastic start to the tournament. It gives you so much more sort of maybe even relaxation as you move towards the later stages.
I mean, what a confidence booster to be able to prove to yourself and to everybody watching that on your first playoffs, even as a challenger, you have what it takes to go up against someone like Surrender. And Garubor, I don't blame him for feeling the pressure even in such a strong position, and he is just going to go in.
And I
think that's the play. Yeah,
I love it because
absolutely.
Look at this, right? With Pixie, there's 20 damage from hand without the minions. Surrender's only on 12. Like, there's so much damage you can put out. This UI is as good as it's ever going to get for Surrender. But
mind you, he may
even
have to expend a Moonfire just to not possibly overdraw Malagos, and that's even less damage he can deal. If he even survives,
Oh, poor Surrender. Look at the little face.
I thought I was the most biased caster, Raven, but
Not when Surrender's on screen.
Let's see.
You should hear me in the back room when Surrender's on screen. Well, I don't have to sound completely sensible. But
so from
this is just tough. There's just... Again, the problem here is now Surrender has to do 2 major things at the same time, and he can't.
Yeah. And I was thinking he either had to expend Moonfire or the fluked Arcane Tyrant there, just so he wouldn't overdraw. But he says, I need all of those pieces to be able to
Flurry's just
get through the arm. Yeah, anyway. And yeah, even though he's dead here, I don't blame him for that play, because even though there's a 1-5 to overdraw Malagos, if he uses any of those pieces, he's never getting there anyway.
I don't even know what to say about this match. Already today, we've had a flurry of 3 zeros, at least on stream.
Here for either of them puts them in fine position. And, you know, the way we phrase it is that this is Act 1. Act 1 is rounds 1 through 3. Who gets in the best position? No one's, like, truly eliminated as long as they win one or two games. And then from round 4 onwards is when it starts getting real spicy. Act 2, right? Who is able to set themselves up for the top 8? And then Act 3, of course, is who's going to the championship.
Yeah. And then Act 4 is me going home.
By yourself?
By myself in my car home, yes.
Oof.
But once I get home, I will no longer be by myself. Thank goodness.
Well, you know, TJ, you recently became a homeowner. Congratulations.
I did, thank you.
And you promised to host a housewarming party.
I did.
And you moved in months ago.
I even said when I said I was going to have a housewarming party after playoffs.
Oh, did
Said
you?
it right to your face.
I thought you said it was going to happen in January and then.
Nope. I said in February after playoffs before championships.
Aw.
So don't worry, Dan. That's coming.
Sweet. Can't wait.
And you know what we're
It's
going to
be
do?
lots of snacks.
I'm just going to have a bunch of tablets set up. We're just all going to
Good
play
jam
Hearthstone.
Yeah, well, I'm going to play Odd Warrior.
Oh, no. There's no Odd Warrior allowed in the Sanders household, Frodan. My son will know that all too well once he knows how to speak.
Your son is going to be the greatest Hearthstone player of all time.
I would hope so.
Speaking of one of the greatest Hearthstone players ever, we have tom60229 with Even Paladin up against Glory's Even Paladin. And you know, part of the reason why we just failed to acknowledge his early game whatsoever is because they are pretty much just jockeying for early game position. And what really matters is pretty much the fact that Glory gets to go first and present the threat first. And when you are the player that's behind in the Even X matchup, like Even Shaman, Even Paladin, what you look for the most, TJ, is that swing turn.
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
Go on.
I know you're big into swinging.
Yep.
But, you know, what you really look for is the ability to let your opponent extend onto the board. Then, because it's specifically Even Paladin, you have access to things like equality to really punish your opponent. And so, you know, there's a significant advantage going first in this matchup. So Glory does have the advantage. But, you know, how does Tom divide up his resources and use cards like the equality, like even Sunkeeper Terran? You know, his opponent can play like a big threat, and then you can use Terran and push.
Yeah, and Tom found a small swing turn, but a swing turn nonetheless. Was able to utilize Wild Pyromancer with the Hydrologist Secret to be able to get favorable trades on board, and now he's sort of the one in the driver's seat. Glory has to, 1, account for this secret, whatever it may be, and also 2, find a way to get back on board while also getting his own development and riding that fine line between playing reactively to what your opponent's doing while also playing proactively to make sure you stick to last threat is what makes Even Paladin mirror matchups interesting.
Yeah, precisely. And there's a very good article out there. I believe the title is called "Who's the Beatdown," and it basically is talking about in card game or card battle game theory, because there's a lot of card games out there like Spades or Hearts, but in card game theory, card game battle theory. I'm gonna get it out eventually, TJ. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in card game theory, card battle game theory.
There's supposed to be one player that is the aggressor and the other player that's the defender. And in this matchup specifically, you're going to find that that line gets blurred very often. Like, who's the one that's actually trying to defend and be a little bit more conservative, and then the other person trying to extend and push for that damage. And, you know, I always find it very interesting how players choose to spend their resources to be more aggressive. And, you know, Tom has a really good opportunity to press in here and capitalize on resources, which is using this Divine Shield to get a very easy value trade. And then how does Glory respond back now that, you know, he doesn't have Equality, he doesn't have Sunkeeper Tarim. He's got okay tools, to say the least, here.
Yeah. Now, one thing to note is Tom did have the option to Spectral Steed his 1/1 that could attack that turn, trade over that way. But he went with this option, which I think is a bit odd because Glory does have a Spellbreaker in the deck.
Right. And that could have been super
And
fun.
he would all in on one minion, and so if it got silenced, then he'd be kind of left stranded. But the one thing is that if it would kind of be the same outcome because he'd still have a 4/3 on the board against a silence 1/1, where in this case he'd have a 4/3 on the board against a 1/1.
Right.
So I think he realized that and just wanted to go as all in as he possibly could. But Dan, I think we just witnessed a swing turn.
We don't have a sound effect for that, do we? Maybe just a giant
Can our sound team find a sound effect for that for me? Anything? Reach into the bag, pull out any sound you could possibly imagine.
It's got to be one of those carnival things that goes woo.
I don't think we have that.
Our greatest strength.
All right.
There we
Okay.
go.
I think that's the only one we have. Thanks.
It's a one sound fits all.
Thanks, Mr. Sound Guy. We have another one. I like that one better.
12 damage plus 8 from the hand, so 20. I mean, you have also Equality Consecration to swing on the following turn. I like it. Blessing of Kings, True Silver Champion, all to the face. Championship, World Championship level plays here from Tom. And of course, you know, we're not saying that to mock him, but just anything when you find out that you have this opportunity to go on the aggressive, and you definitely take it as Even Paladin.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's much Glory can do here. Even if he clears the board, he's dead. And he doesn't even get the opportunity to clear the board cleanly this turn.
Yeah. You can tell Tom's Amazon Prime membership about to run out because he's shipping everything upstairs.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you miss casting with Admirable, man? Because
Sometimes.
you've been stuck at the hip with me. Like one giant Siamese twin.
You both have different strengths that complement well.
Yeah. And he was like, and I was like, well, do you plan on qualifying for the World Championship? And he's like, well, yeah, I got one more season. Like, what? So you can just turn it on just like that?
But Dan, you have to be careful because as a world champion, if you take too many vacations, you may end up on one permanent vacation. Because that's where Pavel is right now in perpetuity.
Dude, when Pavel won the World Championship, you know what he did? He traveled to the center of a volcano.
Yes.
To find himself.
And we never found him.
Legends say he's still trying to claw his way out.
Yeah. Legends say he's still trying to figure out how Topsy-Turvy Priest works.
The only way that he can escape from the center of Black Rock Mountain is to learn how to play Topsy-Turvy OTK Priest. There's a funny video, for people who don't know, there's a funny video of Pavel trying to figure out for the first time how to actually execute the Stone Tusk Boar Raid Elemental Test Subject combo. He'd never seen it, and I think Fino just handed him the tablet and said, hey, this is lethal, by the way. He tried to figure it out. It was just a very Pavel-like clip, very innocent and pure and very wholesome, but also very hilarious.
Yes. Very, very hilarious.
I do want to point out this Odd Rogue against the Even Paladin is going so one-sided for now, but all it really takes is one decisive clear, and then, you know, Odd Rogue has to rebuild. But the key to this entire game is that center card from the Boomsday Project, Myra's Unstable Element, which draws the rest of your deck. Tom has so much gas, and he can continue to just press in enough, and, you know, I mean, we've seen also players pull the trigger for the element on 5 to prepare for just power turn after power turn. The problem is, right now with Myra's Unstable Element, Tom doesn't exactly have an intimidating board.
No.
A lot of times when you can pull the trigger on element and you're not forced to, it's because your board's already good enough, your opponent has to deal with it, and then turn 6, it's like double 3. Turn 7, it's like, you know, Vile Spine plus Cold Blood, and it's like, you know, and then turn 8, it's like, you know, all these crazy powerful things, and then you just win because you have non-stop momentum.
Yes.
So I like this from Tom, even though it definitely doesn't seem like the strongest board.
It's also empty more
alright.
cards out of his hand, so Myers gets more value. So that's why Deadly Poison, even though it's not in a minion there, he still just jams it because he knows he's going to refill that resource with something else once he plays Myers in Safe Element. And one thing I want to talk about is Tom's construction of his odd rope list. He's got a copy of Army Gal, as you can see, which I think is just a pretty good call. There's a lot of really annoying taunt minions. If you're expecting a lot of even Paladin, which ends up being the case, allows you to push through Spikeridge Steed if it comes down later in the game, which otherwise would put a stop to your aggression. He's also got Edwin Van Cleave, which has been cut often from on-road because it's not a proactive 3-drop. Oftentimes you need to have setup for it, which isn't what you want to be doing as odd-road very often. But the games where it does come down as a 6-6 or an 8-8, you win a vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a high-risk inclusion in the deck list because it's harder than, say, with Miracle Rogue with backstabs and preps to get a big Edwin. But when you do, oh boy, it is the juice.
Well, speaking of which, a second Acidic Swamp Ooze drawn for Glory to stop that 4 damage. And you know, Time's on Glory's side. If he can stall, he wins because Tom will eventually just die to the fatigue, and Glory has the final say with Equality Consecration. And what really stings here for Tom is the fact that he has the South Sea deckhand for the charge, but he's missing like Leroy, he's missing the second Cold Blood, like the things that truly make a full hand from Odd Rogue super scary. And Glory has defensive tools for days. He's got Spikeridge Steed, the Lich King, and Equality Consecration, and even True Silver Champion in case he gets really murky and needs to gain just a little bit of health.
There's still a lot for him to play around, though. I think that's the big thing, is if he plays Lich King, it's vulnerable to Vile Spine. Spikeridge Steed, it's vulnerable to Iron Beak Owl. So I think he wants to get a little bit more information out of Tom before he expends those and plays it safe. Because also, just pushing with these minions and then equipping True Silver Champion next turn and pushing with that damage is going to start to add up. There's 6 damage on board, 10 from True Silver, 3 fatigue being taken next turn. So Glory's just a couple damage away from lethal if he went all face, which now he just has the lethal.
Yeah, so 5.
Yeah, 6 on board, True Silver
10.
Champion plus 3 fatigue going into the next turn.
You are correct. I mean, he can even cement it too with like a Hydrologist setup.
Yeah.
If he gets eye fly. But that is the lethal, and that is going to tie up the series, send it to game 5. Very quick games, but these players pretty much have weird lineups.
Yeah, they both have even Paladin, Odd Rogue, even Warlock, and some variation of Hunter, where Glory went for the secret style, whereas Tom just went for the straight up beast mid range. Is it 3 fatigue?
It is 3 fatigue.
Yeah.
Good call, Deej. That is going to be a tied series. And, you know, I just find it funny that side Europe, America's in China.
Don't ask me.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, we could be either of these players. We have Glory from Japan, who's actually done fairly well in tour stops this year. Has gotten pretty far in a few of them. And then tom60229, which I'm sure most people have heard of. Tom has not only taken this year easy, but still ended top 10 in points, and also got second in the recent All-Stars event where he played on live television against Blood Trail.
Yeah.
The thing about Tom is that I think he's a great player. I think he's a cool guy. I love that he's just chilling. He kind of, when he's on stage, he just kind of waddles around. He's not like super serious. Yeah. He's not like trying to be super intense and like be someone he's not. He's just a guy that likes to play video games every day.
Yeah, he's basically side duck.
Dang, how you gonna do it? How you gonna do Tom like that?
It's just true.
He's not a side duck. All right, anyways.
Yeah, but Glory also had
about that. What's up?
Glory also had he was an appearance at an HGC championship in the 2018-2019 circuit. Just didn't have a great run in summer. Finished 9th through 12th, which was losing in groups, decider matchup of groups. So definitely wants to get back to that stage. I would hope so. And one other thing I want to point out, Dan, is one of these two players could be my prediction.
That's right. That's
There
true.
is a sealed envelope in Simon Sottle Welch's possession that I had triple verified to be in the show with my prediction signed and sealed. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like anybody else is doing too well, but if I were to pick out of these players, especially the one who won, I'd be pretty smart, wouldn't you say?
I think you would be pretty smart, but I also think that you'd be equally as smart as anyone else getting it correct because you picked one player just like we did.
No, but I did it in a sealed envelope without telling anyone.
Why are you being so deliberate about your word choice?
Because
weirdly
it is a sealed envelope.
Why does envelope begin with an E if you say it like that?
It is a sealed envelope.
Why does envelope start with an E when you say it like that?
It is a sealed envelope.
Or as Sato would say, enveloper.
Enveloper, yes.
A very rebellious piece of paper. Anyways, let's talk about this Odd Rogue mirror. There's a lot of nuance that went into it. Tom had an opportunity to drop his Vicious Fledgling the previous turn, but chose to play around, I think, the Fungal Mancer.
Yep.
And Glory acknowledges that he didn't have a really good opportunity to drop his Vicious Fledgling proactively, so he goes wide on the board, which happens to work out fairly well because Odd Rogue has one clear weakness, which is wide board, which is why Odd Paladin for a long time has given this matchup a lot of fits, or specifically against Odd Rogue.
Yeah.
So you can imagine Tom's anguish right now because he has great quality cards. He just needs time to play it. And with that Iron Beak out SI7 agent play, it actually works out very good because he needed some way to be able to tackle this wide board and deal with everything simultaneously. Now has.
But the thing is, he is, as per conversation earlier, he's a defender in this matchup because he's got a resource advantage currently, but has a health disadvantage, and Glory picking up the Fungal Mancer, which at this point in the game is just good. It's just real good.
So this is really interesting because Tom was on the play, and yet I believe he had a turn 1 play, and yet despite that, Glory hasn't used his coin and is still ahead on the board. This is pretty fascinating to me. Tom, I think it's largely because Glory's had early game play that can spread wide.
Yeah.
Has just been incrementally stacking the advantage. And now Tom has great 5-mana plays, but just nothing to leverage it. Like no cheap combo enabler for Vile Spine. I would be extremely shocked if a single minion stays on the board. Oh, he's going all face.
Well, this does
that makes
have
sense, actually.
multiple lethal setups. Basically, if pretty much any minion survives, then he's got lethal, and if it doesn't...
Oh, the punish!
But is that a punish?
It kind of is.
Tom's at 7.
That's true.
He's effectively at 3. And Tom's still a long ways away from picking up lethal. He's got 4 on board. Next turn, even with just Leroy, if you picked up Cold Blood, he'd still only have 16, which wouldn't get the job done.
The thing is, though, there are cards for Tom to even come back, though, with things like the Tar Creeper. However, the lower he goes, the more likely Unstable Element is just completely unplayable.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure it's just completely unplayable right now. And Tom only has 1 copy of Tar Creeper in his list because he chose to put in the Iron Beak Owl and Edward Bankleaf.
That was so fast. I was not paying attention to Tom's life total when I was like, well, you want to clear the minions so you can stop him from doing anything with it. And it's like, well, that's right. Like, just pay attention to his life total. Tom is desperate enough to...
What? Okay, he has 2 turns to kill Glory, and that's if he can't push a single point of damage through. And I think he was hoping for just double Cold Blood, double Deckhand to try and end the game in 1 turn. And a Tar Creeper to protect his life total that turn. But even then, it just wouldn't have worked out. So Glory takes the series. Tom falls to 2-1.
Yep. But, you know, Glory seems to be on point. And, I mean, if you do lose, you want to lose to a player that continues to go through. So if Glory has, if I recall correctly, TJ. And it's always an interesting story because I feel like we haven't had like that deep challenger run that we've come to expect for a little bit of time. You know, we've had some players that are able to make it really far with Hatul, but nothing this season, right? We haven't seen like that splash. It's been established names and like players we've seen for a while now.
Yeah.
Bobby X and Thunder Up have been competing in playoffs for quite some time. HCM has this Lyra that he's just going to play because he has the availability of the coin. I think he can save that, though. It's not important for Lyra to get that spell, but it is important to get that cloning gallery. Boot and a boot.
Yeah, one of the cool things about HCM, it is his first career playoff appearance, and he is from the Challenger circuit. He actually has a pretty big Twitch following with over 60,000 followers on Twitch, but he streams poker.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He streams a mixture of poker and Hearthstone. And he does have, he doesn't have top 200 legend finishes, but he's finished in the top 500 in September, October, and November on the Asia servers. So definitely quite a bit up there. So pretty cool. Now making his foray into the playoff scene, starting 2-0. Not bad.
Not 2-0 and still looking pretty good in this spot. You know, Hunter, if they're not able to get that early game snowball against Clone Priest and they have the gallery in hand, it gets real messy real fast because Hunter is great at putting on the pressure, but they do need a few turns to get set up. And if Priest just diffuses it turn after turn, they could lose at any given point, which is very scary. And that second Gilded Gargoyle means that next turn, HCM could have the cloning gallery online. He doesn't actually have a way to really convert off it, though. He doesn't have the Holy Smites and the Mind Blasts.
Yeah, he also has played one Radiant, so he would need to hold on to coins if he say he picks up double Mind Blast, he would need to hold on to it to go for that OTK with the pulling Malagos, pulling Velen, pulling Radiant.
It might be a Mass Hysteria moment. Although that Spellstone pickup is also potentially very nice for HCM. So I believe if you trade, because does he know the other secrets? One of them was Freezing Trap, I believe. That is fairly important.
Yeah, because if you Mass Hysteria, it does proc traps.
It does.
As we saw in the Americas playoffs. Now Godon trying to first Mass Hysteriaing and getting his Malagos frozen for the Mass Hysteria, and then trying to coin out an 11-mana Malagos, which
does not work.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. But again, I said it back then. I'll say it now.
Don't even make excuses, Dan.
Look, I'm pretty sure Nalgadon knew that it was 99.9% sure.
But he knew that he was losing in that game no matter what. So he said, maybe that 0.1%.
Yeah, exactly.
Because how often do you have the opportunity to coin out an 11-card minion? It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. It actually has never happened. Ever in Hearthstone.
Well, no, I'm saying how often do you even have the opportunity to?
No, it just never happened.
How often do you ever get the chance to even try?
What the heck is this push? This is like an old beta Hunter push with Tundra, Rhino, Timberwolves, and
If this was around in beta, it would just beat every deck. Almost every deck in the current metagame would just beat every deck from the beta. If you go back and watch the 2013 Hearthstone Invitational at BlizzCon, Wreckful versus Crip, just go watch it. One, you'll be a Hearthstone historian.
Yeah, and you'll learn
that players were just
15.
Yes. You also learn that players were just bad. Well, it's 14, Dan.
Apparently, I do not know how to count.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Freeze Mage back then, TJ.
Oh, no, it was 15. You're right. I don't know how to count. Because it was spell damage Pyroblast plus spell damage Frostbolt. Back when Pyroblast was 8 mana.
Dude, Pyroblast was 8 mana, Frostbolt was 2, Blizzard was 5. Novice Engineer was buffed. You're going to tell me that Freeze Mage couldn't beat decks currently right now? Pyroblast 8 and 9. That's as fast as
Yeah, but I think Pyroblast is just too slow now. Yeah, I think that deck would just get beat up on Hunter.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Hunter specifically. I meant that it would have its place in the metagame.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
This Zul'jin, by the way, is very scary.
Good.
Playing all these beasts, drawing cards.
Yeah.
Oh. Faces the place. Not much of a choice here for HCM as Well, looking for that Mind Blast. Gets it, but it's only 20.
Only 20 damage for 1 mana.
Because he needed one more spell. Had he had the Police Might and Mind Blast, that'd be 34. Suppose at 35. Well, this actually ended up getting really ugly really quick.
Well, I can go for Psychic Scream and try and defend, but then what's his win condition?
Spellstone into value, like Lyra.
Yeah, he could.
I mean, he also can just Spellstone and get like the optimal minions in the pool. Wow.
Wow. What?
Why that one?
What?
That wolf is hating his life. He says, I am the unluckiest wolf in the
That
world.
is the...
And also, what?
What?
Death and Decay is so much damage. All right.
Oh, he took a Holy Smite to deal with a 3/3. He could have been... I don't know. I guess he was worried about dying. Okay,
Yeah,
careful.
he's very worried about dying.
Yeah.
And to his credit, it's a very legitimate fear, given that Cocosasa has another Timberwolf and a Crackling Razor Maw. It could have ended really badly. He could die. Yeah, if he had
died.
he most likely would have died. I mean, if he got like a Wind Fury Adapt.
I don't know about that. I don't think he would have died. We had 18 with an extra 3/3 on board. Be 12 damage. Wind Fury Adapt would be 15. Oh no, you're right. He would have died. Dan, just don't give me that look. Just. I go and cast all day,
Do you though?
and then I come home and have to cook both of our meals, and you're gonna give me that look because I counted wrong? The nerve.
Listen, man,
You can sleep on the couch today.
it's gonna be okay. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. What?
What?
Is that lethal?
No,
What?
it's 3 off.
Wait, but if he uses Death and Decay, he like buffs the hyena.
Wow. I'm pretty sure those are the 4 best minions that
That-
we could have gotten.
Was the Stone Cold Almonds. What? How does it keep doing this? I don't understand.
All right, well, looks like we're going to a game 5.
What? I don't understand.
Never forget. Never forget.
Colleen,
Death Rattle Hunter, kind of like a ramp deck, very similar to like Druid of old, and then also Cube Warlock or even Warlock. It's just like it takes its first couple turns of passivity, and then it goes 0 to 60. You know, life comes at you fast, but so does Death Rattle Hunter.
yeah.
However, it doesn't come that fast.
Yeah, it goes 0 to 60 in, probably about 6 seconds. So it's a sporty hybrid. How
You
about
do
that?
not know anything about cars, do you?
I know a mild amount about cars. Once upon a time, I knew a lot about cars. Actually, when I was a little kid, how everybody has that dream child when they're a little kid.
Like you fill out in school.
Yeah, or people ask you. I wanted to design cars. I spent a lot of time when I was a little kid drawing cars, like
Like
unique,
an auto engineer or mechanical engineer?
more like an artist, like a concept design.
Gotcha. Yeah.
for-
So you wanted to work for Hot Wheels.
Hell yeah! Hot Wheels.
Lead the way.
Yeah.
Why do we even get hired for this job? We're just not talking about it. It's because Cocosasa has such a powerful curve. That Master's Call was so nutty, and now he has Tundra Rhino with Cracking Razor Maw for the finish.
Yeah.
And HCM, it is comically one-sided. Like, his best attack is actually killing the Timberwolf because it counts as a 6-1 right
Yeah.
now. And then, he doesn't have the ability to capitalize off Spider Bomb. He doesn't have Deathstalker Rexar. And even if he did, it's the turn too early. Play that Witcher Grizzly.
And also, turns out that hunters now, despite having large boards, also have a ton of cards in hand. because the match is calling Subject 9 in the deck. So Witchwood Grizzly isn't even that large or in charge.
Check out this really dank poisonous adapt. It's a 30%. It's a 30% chance. But if you're HCM, you know that it's actually quite possibly a 95% chance.
Yep. He's that 1 man away from being able to do something dumb, like winning the game with Tundra Rhino and Scavenging Hyena.
That is true. So he could adapt just with the Razor Maul and then Hero Power instead of playing like the Hyena and then save the Tundra Rhino Hyena for the next turn. In which case, he might as well play Spring Paw as well then. Either way, I'd like to adapt one of those little felines over there. Give him the hands. Is there a reason why he's hesitating? Why is he hesitating so much, DJ? I guess the debate over the Hyena, but...
Yeah, it's I don't know. This game is pretty much in the bag. There's not much HCM could do. He's got Hunter's Mark, so he could draw Candle Shot, or no, Deathstalker Rexar wouldn't work either because then it just buff the Hyena anymore. He'd just go. If he had drawn Hunter's Mark, wait, he can go Spider Bomb, Terror Scale Stalker, just nail the 10-6 Scavenging Hyena, then follow up with Deathstalker Rexar, then get a combination of Vicious Scalehide and other various good zombies, and win the game from there. This relies on hitting a 1 and 4. Let's see. Nope.
No.
GG.
I just didn't feel it, man. And even if he did, he'd still be in trouble because Cocosasa kind of has the pressure going. He still had 4 damage on board, which is kind of why I wanted to hit face a little bit there. But in the end, no harm, no foul. Cocosasa crossed the finish line, and now he is 3-0. And with that, TJ, we're done with round number 3. So let's go ahead and take a look around the tavern and see how are some of our favorite players doing. Tyler.
Whoa.